Days ahead of the US Secretary of State's visit to India, a Trump official has voiced support for India's stance on peace with Pakistan, but not at the cost of national security. However, with ceasefire violations across the LOC continuing unchecked, is the prospect of peace a far cry from reality? A report.
Another Indian civilian was killed in Jammu and Kashmir following ceasefire violations by Pakistan on Saturday. This even as the Indian Army chief said he felt the situation in the valley is getting better.
I think the security situation in the Kashmir valley is improving, and what is happening now in the Kashmir valley is possibly highlighting the frustration of the terrorists and those who are supporting them.
However, the chief also maintained that terrorism and terror camps across the line of control continue to pose challenges for security forces. His comments come just ahead of US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's arrival in India on Tuesday. Official talks take place Wednesday, and the US's approach to Pakistan is likely to feature prominently. India has seen Mr. Tillerson's comments at a prominent think tank earlier this week as a positive sign on that front.
The United States and India stand shoulder to shoulder against terrorism. States that use terror as an instrument of policy will only see their international reputation and standing diminish. It is the obligation, not the choice, of every civilized nation to combat the scourge of terrorism.
Tillerson's maiden visit to South Asia comes after President Donald Trump's much-talked-about new policy for the region. In India's views, his tough talk on terror emanating from Pakistan was just what the doctor ordered. The time might be just right for New Delhi to push its agenda a bit further. A new report quoting an unnamed US official indicates that America sees virtue in India's stand that talks and terror cannot go hand in hand. Saying, and I quote, Prime Minister Modi wants peace in the region, but he can't pursue peace with Pakistan in a way that cuts against his own security. So that is up to his judgment, unquote. However, with President Trump praising Pakistan for a recent hostage rescue mission in northwest Pakistan, India will be wary of relying on talk alone. The proof of the pudding will lie in the eating. The report, WION.
All right, to talk to us tonight about Mr. Tillerson's maiden visit to India and Pakistan and what exactly it's going to mean for both those countries. Remember, it's a difficult time for peace talk between India and Pakistan. With me from Islamabad tonight is the defense expert, Mr. Sultan Hali. Mr. Hali, thank you so much for speaking with us here at WION. If I can start by asking you, how exactly does Pakistan view Mr. Tillerson's visit to the country, especially after the announcement of the new South Asia policy and the tough talk on Pakistan and its sponsorship of terrorism?
Well, to start with, the new policy of President Donald Trump on the region was not welcomed in Pakistan. We criticized it, and we dispatched our own foreign minister to Washington, D.C. to present Pakistan's views on the subject. And you rightly mentioned that a very pleasant occurrence took place when a hostage crisis was resolved after about 5 years of a Canadian-American couple being rescued on Pakistan soil, albeit because they had been transferred a day earlier. Although Pakistan had to pay a price for it, the very next day the terrorist struck back. But coming back to the subject of Mr. Tillerson, we expect that he is going to talk tough to Pakistan. We are mentally prepared for it. We have already got a whiff of what he's going to say in India, which he perceives, or which the US perceives as its ally. So we are bracing for the impact, but we are only hoping that between the United States and the region, this does not turn into a zero-sum game, because India is more than welcome to have good relations with America as long as it translates into peace in the region. But if it is an either-or relationship, then probably there is going to be problem for Pakistan, and Pakistan is carrying out its own soul-searching and analysis in which it will try and present its own views.
Where do you think the onus lies, though, sir, when it comes to maintaining peace and fostering an environment that will allow peace to proliferate across the region?
Well, you see, the perception here at Islamabad is slightly different from what it is at Washington, D.C., and perhaps also what is its difference lies in New Delhi also. We believe that the relationship between Pakistan and U.S. has been a little trouble. The failures of the U.S. allies in Afghanistan are prominent, but to scapegoat only Pakistan or to single out Pakistan being responsible for it is probably being unfair, and the onus lies not on Pakistan, but it lies on the U.S. to have an equilibrium in the region, rather than use one country as a whipping dog and hold it responsible for all its own failures.
All right, but what do you make of Pakistan's attempts at assuaging not just the United States' fears but the region at large? Pakistan of late has received a great degree of criticism even from Afghanistan, and now there's been an explosion at the Gwadar port, which is part of its relationship, that strong relationship between Pakistan and China. So it's not just India who's being affected, it would seem, by this proliferation of terror. Do you think Pakistan's done enough to change its image on the global stage?
Well, you see, you got to look at the facts on the ground. In Afghanistan, the Taliban control more than 50%, or at least 50% of the territory. And they do not need any safe havens in Pakistan. We have carried out 2 military operations, the Operation Zarb-e-Azb and now the ongoing Raddul Fasad. And we have driven out the terrorists, and we have killed them. But we believe that they are no longer safe havens in Pakistan. But what has happened in Kabul may be a local affair, because the Taliban are striking back. If you notice, in the past couple of days, there have been a number of drone attacks. As far as the attack in Gwadar goes, it could be a retaliation for Pakistan's forces joining up with the U.S. forces, because we are providing them intelligence to make sure that the enemy or the miscreants are targeted correctly.
Right, stay with me, Mr. Hali. I'm also joined on the broadcast by the former General Officer Commanding of 15 and 21 Corps, and now, of course, a strategic analyst, Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain. General Hasnain, a pleasure having you on the show once again. We're talking about Mr. Tillerson's impending visit to India and Pakistan. Do you feel that the feelers, so to speak, from the United States so far on the policy of Pakistan are enough of positive signs for India, or is India going to have to rely on walking the talk?
You see, firstly, Aisha, Mr. Tillerson's impending visit in the next 2 weeks, first of all, he decided to come to both India and Pakistan together. That's what some people may take it as a rehyphenation of the relationship the United States enjoys with in the subcontinent. You noticed during President Obama's time, perhaps there was a time when we were looking at the dehyphenation of that relationship. But that's not very important. I think Mr. Tillerson has made it quite clear, and in a number of his interactions with the media, in his recent speech also, that the United States desires a very strong strategic relationship with India, that India is a very important strategic partner as far as the Indo-Pacific is concerned, as far as Afghanistan is concerned. But he is not willing to go to that extent which India was desiring at one time, that this relationship be an exclusive relationship. What we are seeing increasingly is that there was a tremendous amount of encouragement which was received after the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Washington, and we received a lot of positive signals from President Trump at that time, but thereafter things have changed slightly. Obviously, the readings that we are making is that the United States wishes to play its interests in Afghanistan, and for that Pakistan is an important player. I think slowly this realization has also come in India. That is not important for us to continue harping on the aspect of an exclusive relationship. That the United States has got its interests in Afghanistan, in other areas in which Pakistan is a very important player. And therefore, I think increasingly what Indian foreign policy is looking at is actually reducing the impact of its Pakistan linkage in its overall strategic relationship and the manner in which it looks at the worldview.
Do you think the Indo-Pacific region then becomes even more important? I mean, that speech that Mr. Tillerson gave at a think tank earlier this week, he mentioned Indo-Pacific region 19 times. Of course, the US has reasons for being concerned about that region, given what's happening with North Korea and China. But the takedown of China too, General Hasnain, that too has to be something that India has taken note of.
Absolutely, Aisha. I think DOCLAM has played a very major role in this. And the whole aspect is that even on the 19th Congress, although no direct references are being made here, but obviously things are being referred to. And India has to dehyphenate itself in its overall worldview from what its relationship with Pakistan is. It has to realize that India is a far more important global player and that the Indo-Pacific is a very, very important area for us. The very fact that the United States has included the quadrilateral, where India, United States, Japan and Australia will be seen as the four corners of the quadrilateral to look at the Indo-Pacific region as largely as an offset to the Chinese hegemony in the South China Sea and increasingly in the East Asia region. This is a very, very important aspect. And I think India actually should be happier with these developments and slowly reduce and dilute the importance of the Indo-Pakistan link.
Right. Mr. Hali, does that sort of conundrum face Pakistan as well? Because unlike India, it's not being hyphenated just with India. It's being hyphenated with its relationship with China and, of course, with what's happening in Afghanistan. Is anyone really looking at Pakistan as an entity of itself? And how much does Pakistan have to be blamed for that?
Well, to start with, we do not like the word blame, because we have been blamed far too long, despite the sacrifices we have made, despite the efforts we have made, despite the achievements we have secured in countering terrorism. Yes, there are a lot of terror attacks which are going on your part of the region also, and the blame for it again comes on Pakistan, for which there are non-state actors who are responsible for it. Pakistan does not have a state policy of sponsoring terrorism because it is itself the victim.
But
now,
sir,
coming back to Pakistan,
I apologize for cutting you off. Can I ask you though, let's just look at somebody like a Hafiz Saeed. There are two cases or two parts of the legal system in Pakistan under which he was under detention. The Maintenance of Public Order Ordinance, the MPO, and the Anti-Terrorism Law. Now, the Punjab government has gone ahead and withdrawn its application for detaining him under the anti-terrorism law. This is a man that the United States has a million, I don't even know how much money worth of a bounty on his head. He's accused of being the mastermind behind the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. His organization has been sanctioned by the United Nations. I mean, does Pakistan really have to do much more if people are to take it seriously when you say that it is not somebody or not a nation that sponsors terrorism?
Yes, coming back to people like Hafiz Saeed, let me share with you, Aisha, that I personally do not like that particular person. And there are many more like me. Unfortunately, we are a silent majority and we do not appreciate whatever Mr. Hafiz Saeed does. We heaved a sigh of relief when he was placed under the Prevention Act in-house detention. But you see, the law must take its course, and we are certainly hoping that it does. He tried to make a political party, but the Election Commission of Pakistan has refused to register it. And we certainly hope that in case Mr. Hafiz Saeed is engaged in any acts of terrorism, he does meet the, or rather face the turpitudes of law itself.
General Hasnain, I don't want to dwell too long on Hafiz Saeed. I don't want to give him too much airtime. But the fact of the matter is that the Pakistan Election Commission chose to strike down the Milli Muslim League's paperwork. But it happened after the Shaman Declaration. It happened after President Trump's South Asia strategy was announced. Given all of that and given the fact that Mr. Tillerson's arriving with the Indo-Pacific region really clearly quite top of the agenda, India will still try and push its agenda for calling Pakistan out and sanctioning Pakistan for terrorism, won't it?
Aisha, absolutely. the fact that I said that we should de-link our relationship with Pakistan from our larger worldview doesn't mean that we don't continue to focus on calling Pakistan for all that it has done to the world at large, not only to India, over the last so many years. That doesn't take away anything from that. And the fact that when Mr. Tillerson is here is the time for us. That is actually the diplomatic moment for us when we should harp on this and we should focus on it. While we continue discussing issues on China, we discuss issues on the Indian Ocean, on the Indo-Pacific region, the very presence of Mr. Tillerson in India and in Pakistan at that time we should make sure that we focus on this issue of calling the shots, making sure that Pakistan is identified. Mr. Hilali has just actually spoken about the fact that there is a silent majority. It's a very good thing that there are silent majorities. But silent majorities have to ultimately make something happen. You see, the $10 million bounty which you were talking about on Hafiz Saeed's head, it's been there for a couple of years now. But what has happened? That there's a strategic relationship between the United States and Pakistan, but the United States has not been able to impose enough pressure on Pakistan to be able to take legal action against him. And we have seen just exactly what is happening over the last weekend.